And I think the answer to that is be humble. You've been appointed as a non-executive because of your skills and various other attributes, but you probably don't know the company too well at the beginning, or the organisation. You probably don't know the people all that well, although you know some. And I have found it really helpful to spend time getting to know the organisation and the people in it. All the people, not just the directors, but the people who work directly with them and so on. And listen at meetings, listen and try to understand what the issues are about and what the dynamics of the board members are. I tend not to feel I need to speak about every single topic on an agenda, just the ones that I feel I can contribute to. So take it easy until you know what you're involved in.
I suppose the first thing to do is to get your CV updated. And your CV is probably not a traditional paper CV like it used to be, but it's probably something like your LinkedIn profile. And your LinkedIn profile, it shouldn't read like a CV. It shouldn't just be job after job after job. It should be detailing your experience, your skills, and also your interests. And once you've got your LinkedIn profile looking good, and people can help advise you on this, but once you've got that looking good, then start connecting with people, get your connections up. If you already have a profile, get it tidied up, get your connection numbers up, and more importantly, start interacting with people on LinkedIn. It's not just a case of scrolling through their posts and maybe putting the odd like and congratulations on a new job. It's about showing your skills and experience, and by doing that, you might want to create some of your own posts. You might want to just share some news articles and then start a dialogue, start a discussion on them. But what you're doing all along here is just showing that you've got skills and knowledge and understanding of possibly your sector or possibly another sector. And once you've done that, it's then you might want to actually get an actual position itself. And I suppose the easiest way to do that initially is to take maybe a non-paid position, which could be something like a school, it could be PTA, it could be a school board governor type role. Or it could be a charity. I'm sure many people have worked with charities, interacted with charities over the years, and they're always looking for board members. Or it could be something even in politics, if politics is your thing. You could become a branch convener or a minute secretary or something, just to get you understanding what it's like to work on a board with other board members, and importantly, how to deal with management teams, because at the end of the day, you are the board, you're not the day-to-day management team. So you have to learn how to interact with management, and especially if you're used to running your own business, that can be a skill in itself. So it's about understanding your position in the board and the board's interaction with management teams as well. And once you're comfortable with that, and it's not for everyone, so it's a good way to allow you to do that without actually being paid and without over-promising about what your skills are. It's a good way to understand, is this something you enjoy, is this something you want to do? And if it is, then I suppose the next step in that, or the third tip, is actually finding that position. And good old-fashioned networking is probably one way to do it. It's just getting out and about there. The people you've met through your board, your charitable board, your political, your school board, is speaking to these guys and saying, do they have any opportunities? Do they know anyone, any private organisations who are looking for a board member? But there's other ways of doing it. The IOD, the Institute of Directors, they've got really good things on their membership where you can get training, you can learn new skills, and they've got a sort of job board, as it were, where you can meet companies who are looking for non-exec directors, and they're tying them into potential non-execs as well. And obviously, executive search firms who get used by many companies to find their non-exec directors. whether that be the private sector or third sector. If you get to know these guys, they'll have plenty of opportunities. And again, it's just about meeting them, showing off the skills, maybe connecting through LinkedIn initially with them, having discussions with them, having a meeting, finding out what you're looking for, speak to them, see what they've got on offer, and where they think you would fit into some organisations they work with.
First of all, you need to make sure that there is no conflict with your current role, but an employer is more likely to give you time off if they can understand the benefits. So one of the areas I would direct you to is the Women on Boards. That's womenonboards.net website. And if you look at their resource centre and under the section Career and Leadership, several sections there that would be helpful. But in particular, the benefits of being a non-executive to your executive career, in that it can feed into your personal development program, it can be a point of difference, it enables you outside of your executive career to focus on different skills. It might be that it presents a leadership opportunity that's not available in your executive role. It could possibly enable you to grow your market or industry knowledge, and it will certainly enable you to grow your network. The other advantage that you can talk to your employer about is that it improves your career resilience, and it indicates to your employer that you're actively looking to develop your own leadership, and you're engaged in another community and working at board level.
I think the first thing to acknowledge is perhaps the historical context. We are coming from a legacy of a world where there were far more gender-specific aspects to life than anything we're facing in our modern age in the UK, and that is perhaps easily envisageable in the next few years. We're coming from a world where women were excluded from almost every aspect of professional, sporting, religious, political life. And we still live in a world where our daughters and granddaughters on the current equal pay trajectory are likely to earn less than our sons and grandsons. So I think in looking at the concept of workplace and wider societal networks that are gender specific, we have to realise that we are still trying to compensate for that historic legacy. So we have to think about that history. But it is a really relevant question, because I think workplace networks, business networks around a single gender or ethnicity or sexual orientation do inspire strong views and reflection. And I'm gay, but I've always been slightly unsure about LGBTI networks for staff and what I feel about those. So there is a debate, and what do non-execs on a board do when there's an issue that needs discussed? They make sure it's discussed. So it's a great topic to be looking at. I guess some of the things I think about, firstly, in terms of the positive things these networks can bring if they're done well. They do have a valuable role in being supportive for people who do come from that background or group. They do offer visible role models, and that is really important to people. I know myself, when setting out in law, seeing so few people who were out did make me wonder how I would fit in. And so actually an aspect of more visible role models has been really important. I think they also act as a reminder to the organisation and possibly an organisation with a more narrowly constructed board or top tier of management, that there is real diversity within their ranks and that it is good to be thinking about how to respond to those diverse groups. I think really good networks are also inclusive of allies. So what does that mean if you're not familiar with the jargon of these networks? Well, it means that people from outside that group are welcome to some meetings or to all meetings and are seen as a really active part of the network rather than it being totally exclusive. So that it may be possible as a man to go along to some gender specific events, or as someone who's straight to go along to some specific LGBTI events, to be an ally and show support and to make sure that these groups aren't seen as too exclusionary but performing a supportive role for a group that may feel it needs a bit of extra support. And I think finally they can be really visible to stakeholders and to shareholders who are placing importance on these factors, and therefore, you know, they can be a strength for the whole business in terms of positioning it as a business that's happy to have that group visible and active. But I think there are also things that can go wrong or things that can feel a bit more exclusionary, and they're important to reflect on as well. They're not accusations to these groups, but they're things to reflect on when you're making sure a business environment works for everybody. So it can be possible for any subgroup, whether that's a project group or whether it's a gender-based network, to lose sight of the fact that they're there in many ways to support the overall strategy and the overall values of the business. So their operation has to be aligned to that. Otherwise, it will start feeling threatening or countercultural to others. They need to make sure that their actions are trying to make others feel included and to celebrate diversity rather than something that ends up being seen as an attack on others. And then finally, I think the organisation needs to be transparent about some of the challenges it's facing, which may have led to the network being set up or still being seen as really important. So if a business isn't being open, but they maybe feel they do have a challenge around lack of female talent in the boardroom or lack of ethnic minority managers in their middle management tier, or a lack of staff who are willing to be out, which suggests they're uncomfortable in their workplace. If businesses aren't being open that those challenges are there, then a lot of staff are going to see the need for a network in a different light. And so the business has a role in explaining the value of these networks. But I think it is really interesting discussion about what makes these networks supportive rather than exclusionary, what helps us drive forward with them rather than hark back to those legacy issues of the past I started on. And maybe it's a discussion we can keep going in person when we do finally meet at this event once current events are over. So thank you.
To your point, and I of course speak as the Scottish representative for one of those bodies, which would be Women on Boards, which was created over 10 years ago on the back of the Sydney Olympics and based out of Australia. And at that time, whilst diversity has always been important, women were certainly the largest majority in terms of the lack of diversity afforded and offered to that particular group. But of course we've moved on an awful lot since then, and I would suggest now that very often organisations with specific, like Women on Boards, we tend to now refer to ourselves as WOB, and what we're trying to do is move away from that, because the breadth and depth of what we offer is available to all minorities. And that's based on the recognition, and really the stronger point that we talk about now is not that it is gender for its own purpose that becomes important, but what diversity brings to both the workplace and to the boardroom. And that's not only diversity, but inclusion, because diversity cannot stand alone without inclusion.